is my pleasure to welcome Harit Nagpal, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Tata Sky, to this interaction with Creative First. Harit, in your experience, through the DTH to the online curated content era that we are now in, what has been the most exciting part of the evolving landscape in the broadcast sector?
Well, the broadcast sector by itself is interesting every morning. There's never a dull moment. I've been here 11, I'll be 11 years next month, and I haven't seen a dull morning. So, to start with, there was the hyper competitive world of between the DTH operators and the cable operators trying to get share from each other. Then came the digitization, dash one, dash two, dash three, dash four, and the things that we had to do for that. Then came NTO 1, where the entire business model was changed. We didn't even know we were not doing. We were doing a different business one morning versus what we were doing the previous day. And then people kept telling me, including my children, that Dad, you're in the wrong business because everybody's going to watch OTT, nobody's going to be watching TV. So what are you doing? And when I went down to the market and met with customers, I saw something else. It's like people telling you that, oh, the rich people have bought private aircraft, so the airlines will not work, and it was something like that. So we carried on regardless, and then on top of that, there is COVID. So in the last 11 years, I haven't seen a month where my business model has either not been challenged or has been professed to be defunct in the future. But we carry on and we keep growing.
The pandemic especially completely upended the business. I think it's transformed both the CNS and DTH sectors. How has the sector adapted?
Well, the adaptation of the ability to adapt for the sector or whichever company that adapted to it, whichever field you were in, I mean, regardless of broadcasting or whatever, was your ability to serve the customer without getting the customer on your premises. So the businesses that have not been able to adapt are the ones who are still living in the era where you had to bring the customer to your place to be served. We were always serving people at their homes digitally to start with. The only thing that we had to do physically was, install or repair, or subscribers having to recharge as the prepaid systems. People have to go to a shop to recharge. We had, any case, over the years, reduced the amount of physical contact. We encouraged online recharging. We encouraged allowing the customers to change their packs online through the app, etc., etc. And we'd reached a fair degree of conversion on that front. And that really, we covered about 4 years of work in the last 1 year in that, because even the customer did not have the means to go to a shop, so they had no choice. What it has done further for us is we used to run call centers out of call centers. Now we don't run call centers out of call centers. Our call taking agents are sitting at home, their respective homes, and taking calls. We should have done this ages ago, but it required a pandemic for us to do that. So our ability has been because of we had digitized the recharging and pack change and other query handling processes online, and that's helped us.
Right. Harit, can you share some insights on consumption patterns? What is the DTH consumer watching?
Well, like Vidya Balan said in one of the movies, entertainment, 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 and that's what is the mainstay. So DTH customer is no different from a YouTube customer or a cable customer or any customer. People like entertainment. They like to entertain themselves after a long day. So the majority is entertainment. Yes, when there's a cricket match happening, there is a certain shift from entertainment towards a cricket match. When there is an announcement, public announcement by the Prime Minister or somebody happening, there is a certain shift towards that. When important news is breaking or election results are coming out, there's a certain shift. But that doesn't mean that everybody's watching the cricket match or everybody's watching the news or the election results. There is a core entertainment segment, and these days even news is entertainment. So it's like
That's right. Can you tell us a little bit about the 20-year-long DTH license and what it means for the industry?
Well, licenses need to be long for an investor to invest because there is a certain degree of certainty that any investor would seek when he's going and investing. Nobody invests, we are not trading. We are investing, we are putting the money upfront in infrastructure and people and organization. And we don't see any returns for the first 10, 15 years of our businesses. For example, we've been 15 years into this business. And no money has gone back to the investor. Whatever money that the business is making is being reinvested to acquire more customers and grow the business. No money, no dividend has gone back to the investors. So in this kind of an environment, which is infrastructure heavy and not a trading business, the license needs to be as long as possible so that there is at least one certainty of A, ability to do business, and B, the policy.
Right. What was the challenge earlier? Because we did see that this was a recent announcement, right?
So our original license was provided for 10 years.
Right.
But strangely, for reasons unknown to anybody now, the people who drafted the license forgot to or missed putting in the renewal conditions of the license, renewal terms of the license. So in the absence of that, you had no choice but to write a new license.
Got it.
So, and nobody noticed while getting that license, none of us noticed that there is no renewal clause in this license.
Got it. Okay. So in terms of installations and sign-ups, what are the regional and demographic trends that you see across the country?
So the movement is moving more towards, I mean, the more subscribers coming in from the villages than from the cities, and which can be expected for two reasons. One, 65%, 67% of India lives in the 600,000 villages that we have. So, more as economic capability of the villages and the villagers improves, they will invest in things like televisions and DTH, etc. And second, each of these villages is anywhere between 50 to 200 homes, 5-10 kilometers from the next establishment. So carrying things to these places by wire is not an easy task. So therefore, even landlines did not go there in the good old landline era.
Yes.
In fact, they got connected when the mobile phones happened. You put up a tower and the whole village a cluster of 10 villages got connected. You put one tower in the middle of these 10 villages. So for the same reasons, DTH is a little more amenable for these kind of places. So we're getting a little more from the rural areas a lot more from the rural areas than from the cities. That's one. And second, you would know that better. There are more movies produced in the south than the rest of the country. Yeah. There is, for whatever reasons, I don't know whether the cinema halls caused the movie making or the movie making caused the cinema halls, but either as it may, the fact is that there is more film production and more film addiction in the south, or more entertainment addiction, and the number of hours people watch television in the south is much more than what they do in any other part of the country. So cable penetration was historically very deep in states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, in the south as such. The number of TV channels also, each South Indian language has more TV channels than any other language in the country. Even a small state like Kerala has more channels than some of the larger North Indian states. So logically, villages and south is contributing to more of the new additions.
And what are the opportunities for Tata Sky in particular in the sector?
Well, I'm an optimist, so I only seek opportunities, and then if you see the opportunities, then at least you gather the courage and the infrastructure to capture them. And as I see it personally, there is we have about 270, 280 million households in this country. 100 million of them don't have a television, even today. So it's like, we were taught in college that Two people go to a village. One person comes back and says nobody's wearing shoes, so therefore I can't sell shoes there. Another person says nobody's wearing shoes. Opportunity. I can sell a shoe to everybody. So I see that 100 million people not having a television as an opportunity, not a threat. First of all, so that's one big opportunity. Then there's another 40, 45 million homes after that who are currently on FTA. Now people start low when they start consuming something, whichever category you're in. People start by consuming for free and then they upgrade. A portion of them upgrade. So I see a portion of that 45 odd million homes which are watching free to air as an opportunity to upgrade to pay. And these are the big opportunities as I see.
With the rise of the gig economy, what needs to change, in your opinion, to support a creative economy, a robust creative economy?
See, the creative guys thrive on freedom and opportunity, if you ask me. Put a creative guy on shackles, put him on a 9 to 5 job. I mean, I'm increasingly seeing, even we are not content producers, we are content distributors, but in areas in our business also where there is a little bit of creativity, out of the box thinking, etc. required. These are the kind of guys, they don't want to come from 9 to 5, 5 days shaven in proper clothes, tucked in shirt, proper shoes. You got to let them be. So therefore, creating too many rules, creating too many bureaucracies around an industry that's primarily selling stuff that is created out of the blue. I mean, what is entertainment and what is drama? Each all created out of the blue. So putting too many shackles around that industry, I think it's not, an attempt to support it or, that will help its growth.
So therefore, how can the policy framework be strengthened? And, we all saw the recent Bombay High Court order. What's your thoughts on that?
So there are two parts to it. The first part, the necessity for an NTO kind of a thing, or to create a regulation which is tight, was actually created by the industry itself to start with, if you ask me, because there was a large portion of the industry that was hoodwinking the other part of the industry by under declaring and doing all those kinds of things. So to create a level playing field and to bring in some transparency, some law was required in the jungle for some time. In my personal opinion, I think we went a little too far on that. You needed some control, you needed some rules, some regulations for the traffic to move smoothly, which it wasn't. We've gone one step too far, which is why there is protest from all sides. So we need to find a middle path. We need to have more dialogue between the regulation and the industry for both to be able to do their jobs. I think the dialogue is missing.
And in general, for the sector, what do you see could be possible solutions which we can find through a policy making, process and framework?
Right, they go. The guy who consumes your television or cinema is the same guy who buys toothpaste, salt, a refrigerator, a motorcycle, biscuits, you name it, shirts. Are you regulating the prices of shirts based on the inputs that go into making a shirt? Are you regulating? Do you have a toothpaste regulatory authority of India? You don't. And there are more people who consume toothpaste than there are people who consume television. So if you're not regulating that to the extent of what is the input price, what is the output price, what ratio should there be between the input price and price, we are sitting in a hyper competitive situation. You go to any geography, you have a choice between 4 DTH operators and 2 cable operators, in addition to OTT. There is no way that I can charge a customer more than what my competitor is charging, or I can fleece any customer any which way, or I can hoodwink the customer. In fact, we are all fighting a race to the bottom, all of us amongst ourselves. In that environment, to put such stringent laws. Yes, there needs to be transparency. Let's create a transparent environment. But to regulate prices to this extent, and that to a one-way street, is a little tight, if you ask me. Like I said earlier, there is need for uh, a dialogue between the industry and the regulator a little more often than is happening today.
Right. Harit, today it's all about original content, and most platforms are developing their own content as well. Is this something that Tata Sky is also exploring?
We are very clear in our thinking. We are extremely clear in our thinking. We are saying we are distributors. We are not producers. Uh, you know, it's the broadcasters or the content makers who are good at deciding whether the hero should die or he should marry the heroine. I don't know that. We are very good at going and connecting your home, uh, helping you choose your content, uh, recharging, helping you recharge without any fuss, uh, making content discovery easy. Now, these are the kind of things that we know well. So we will never ever get into the area of content production ourselves. We are distributors and we are very proud of it.
Focus strategy.
Completely.
So, in terms of new offerings, I know that today you can watch both DTH, which is broadcast programming, as well as online curated content through Tata Sky. Do you think this is a form of cord cutting?
Well, I don't think this is a form of cord cutting as such. This is in India. I've always believed that live TV and OTT will be ands and not ors. So, first of all, uh, television was priced so cheap in this country. In fact, on a price parity basis, also, it is the cheapest in the world. There's no other country in the world where it is cheaper than us. So, even and any basic access to OTT, if you include the cost of broadband and subscription to the apps, the relevant apps, if a half decent combination probably costs you 3 to 4 times that what a television connection costs you in terms of monthly payout. So even if the ones who got access to broadband in their homes and picked up 3 or 4 apps and are subscribing to them, uh, are not, all of them are not giving up. Some are, but not all of them are not giving up on television as such. So there is really no cord cutting that is in the true sense that is happening here. If my customers decide or choose to watch on demand content and have the wherewithal and the means to do that, and have the money to subscribe and the will to subscribe to them and watch it when they want, I think it is my job to adapt to distributing that content too. Because we have the relationships with the broadcasters, the producers of these content. We also understand the interface, how to make it easy for the customer to discover new content. And we're using those principles to create Binge as a new offering, in addition to Tata Sky Live TV.
In terms of standards, Harit, could you tell us a little bit about Tata Sky encryption standards to prevent copyright infringement?
We're very strict on that. I'm like, for 2 reasons. Because I don't think any broadcaster would trust us with their content if we do not ensure that only the ones who are authorized to watch that content are watching it for the duration that they've been authorized. So, they can't be even one lapse on that front.
Right.
So
what are the preventive measures you'll take, or is there?
There are various measures. I mean, first of all, the signal is encrypted in a manner that it cannot be decrypted unless and until we authorize it digitally. That's the first part. So you may not have subscribed to a sports channel, but suddenly a match is starting at 3 o'clock, 2:59. You switch on the TV and you say, "Oh shit, I did not subscribe to this sports channel." There will be a number on top there. You send a message to that number or something like that. In a microsecond, that channel will come on.
Right.
But similarly, at the same time, at that same very moment, you will start paying for it, and I will start contributing a portion of that payment that you made to me to the broadcaster, who owns the content rightfully, and the government will start getting its taxes on that. So that's the purpose that we have. So that's one. Secondly, there would be some people who would use this signal to retransmit it. There are various people who do that. So for that, we got fingerprinting mechanisms, which very often you see that small little alphanumeric 8-digit code that appears in different parts of the screen while you're watching Tata Sky. Now that's unique to you. And if you try to retransmit that signal from that one TV to 100 cable connections or analog connections or OTT connections somewhere, that fingerprint or that 8-digit alphanumeric code will get retransmitted to those places. So if I'm watching one of those pirated screens, I actually know that it is your box from where this has gone, and I can stop your subscription immediately so that you are not allowed to retransmit that signal.
That's a really robust mechanism.
Yeah, so we do that, and there are, especially during cricket matches or when a new film is being telecast or when a new soap is being released or something that's of high interest, that's the time when the fingerprinting frequency goes up. And that's the time when we get a lot of feedback from broadcasters saying, okay, this number is retransmitting, this number is retransmitting. And our people are constantly hacking those connections. And we have legitimate reasons to do that. In fact, we are bound by contract to do that. So
that's great. On a lighter note, Harit, Tata Sky has done some wonderful things for its employees during the course of the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about these activities and initiatives?
We were like, see, homes were not geared for people to work in them. They were geared for people to live in them. So on a weekend or in the evening when suddenly somebody asks you for some data or some information, if you sit down in the corner of a sofa or somewhere else and open your laptop and send out a mail to somebody, well, you can do that for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You can't do that for 9 hours a day for one full year. And we realized that most of the homes did not even have a table and a chair, which was conducive for sitting down for 8 hours and working on a laptop. So for the basic health of the individual as well as to promote efficiency, we actually signed up with somebody who was making chairs and tables, and we went and delivered a chair and a table to every employee who wanted it. Some people are used to working with larger screens because they were dealing with a lot of data. Those things are available in the office. So for a few of the people who required that, we sent out larger display screens to their homes so that they could work with that large quantity of data. We used to give mobile phone connectivity to everybody at home. We've also added a broadband connectivity to everybody's home. We had anyway in the past abolished marking attendance about a couple of years ago, even before the pandemic. Where we said, look, you're responsible for the outcome and not for the number of hours you spend at work. So if you're working from home, you're working from home, you're coming at 11, you're coming at 11, you're going home at 8 p.m., you're going home at 8 p.m. That's your call. I mean, so that continuity helped. So these were some of the things that we did. Now farewells happen online, joining-ins happens online. So all those things are happening, and
including this interaction.
I mean, almost everything is happening online now. So we're finding more and more ways of doing things online, which we never thought we would do online.
Harit, moving from online to a little bit of offline, I'm very curious to know this. You travel a lot to visit your customers, and you pretty much like to travel to remote places as well. How has that helped you in decision making and, in what you do and, further goals of Tata Sky?
So I've always
That's very FMCG. I've never heard of anybody in the broadcast industry do that,
So who says that we are not an FMCG? I mean, FMCG's full form is fast moving consumer goods. I think we are faster moving consumer goods because, like I said, the same guy who buys a Pepsi or a biscuit or a motorcycle or a shirt is the person who also subscribes to a television connection. And the thought process and the evaluation criteria that he or she uses to decide on a bottle of cola is quite similar to, or even more rigorous, I would say, when it comes to a subscription. Because a cola, if he or she doesn't like, they can drink half of it, throw it in, swear never to buy it again. But this is when a person is joining us as a subscriber, it's like marriage. He's put in 16, 17, 1800 rupees in subscribing to the box. And he's also committed to, in his head at least, to pay us 200, 300, 400 rupees per month for the rest of his life. Till such time he's troubled and he cancels the subscription. But so the decision-making process are exactly the same. So what we used to do in FMCG, going and meeting customers, is something that we still need to do, because only when you talk to the customer would you know what his other desires are, which we are not able to fulfill. And then we come back and say, tell our technology guys that, okay, this is an unfulfilled desire. Can technology enable something which can fulfill that desire? So rather than what was earlier the method that you were a technology in search of a customer, so you suddenly discovered some technology, it can do something, now chalo customer dhoondne chalte hain. So, we don't do that. We first discover customer need and then use technology to create products and processes to fulfill that. And which requires us to go and meet with customers all the time. We actually walk into their homes. And since I told you, 70% of India lives in villages. For the last 15, 20 years, the only places that I've been to is villages. Once in a quarter, spend a couple of days in going from one village to the second to the third, asking questions. Even if you don't know the language, you can always have somebody along with you who can interpret on your behalf. But you have to go and see their homes and how they live and what they do with the remote and the TV and other things that they use.
So you definitely have a ear to the ground, Harit. Thank you so much for interacting with us today and for sharing such valuable insights. And until next time, stay safe.
Pleasure. Thank you.
The rains.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.